If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the premiere episode of the Uncle Jon Podcast. My name is John, and today I'm going to get into a little bit of a discussion on, the podcast in general, what I'm about, how to set up your own podcast, microphone setups, and maybe a little bit more, maybe get into the whole discussion of why I completely restarted the podcast all from scratch. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So first off, the reason why I started the podcast off completely 100% off from of scratch, or whatever the term is because I didn't like the way that the audio had initially sounded. The setup that I had, it wasn't what I have now. Basically, it was a condenser XLR microphone. It only accepted an XLR male to female cable cord. It was plugged into a sound mixer, and basically from that sound mixer, it took in my voice as well as it took in the desktop voice of whoever else was behind the table as well. And just so there's no confusion, whenever I have a guest on my podcast, all my interviews and whatnot are based off of Skype. Unless, they can't do Skype, then we'll go straight to Discord, which I don't have a problem with that at all. But anyway, it's one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and just restart all this off from scratch. And there's other reasons too, but I don't want to get into that throughout this series here. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into myself and a little bit about what the podcast is about, and somewhat about Anchor. But actually, before I do that, let me backtrack here real quick by saying that any and all old episodes that were on the podcast, and for people who have listened to this podcast before, don't worry, they will be uploaded sometime in the near future. However, they'll probably be just like bonus episodes or something of that nature. I don't want to get those episodes mixed in with the current season of what I'm going for. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump to ship on what exactly this podcast is generally about. So basically, for myself, I've always wanted to podcast, and I've always wanted to talk to a general audience, connect with people, and just have a regular conversation, if you will. For myself, excuse me, I just had water. For myself, I like to discuss things that aren't stressful out in this world. I used to be really into politics a lot. Like, that was the one thing that kind of gave me a little bit of stress at times too, and I kind of hated politics in some way. But now I hate it all completely in general. And with the podcast that I had before I deleted it, it basically had maybe about 1% of political topics being discussed, and to be honest with you, I really want to stay away from that. To me, I find it completely unhealthy to talk about politics, And like, unless someone brings up the discussion, I'm really not going to talk about it one bit. Um, just threw my phone over to the bed. I probably shouldn't have done that. Probably shouldn't have done that at all. I don't know who would probably call me or whatever the case may be. Maybe there's going to be a problem. I don't know. Um, but anyway, for myself, basically, when I start a podcast, I start the podcast with one take, unless there is like an interruption coming from my Google Home Mini, then I continue. But if like someone, says something over the speaker, I don't want it to get into the podcast whatsoever. So that's the only exception that I have, besides like other interruptions. Like if there's an interruption going on, then yes, I will redo a podcast. But if I just mess up in general, I just continue. I go with the flow. I don't care. It's just basically how I am, and that's generally about it. Now the question is, why do I do podcasting? Well, for myself, I find it comforting. Like, it's a part of me that I don't want to ever let go, ever. For myself, I try to do a podcast that's somewhere around maybe 45 minutes to an hour tops. I don't want to go past that when it's just myself talking to anyone out there that's willing to listen to the podcast. And if you are listening to the podcast, I deeply thank you so much. I really do. Really means a lot. Now, let's go ahead and get into Anchor. Okay? So basically, with Anchor, when I first heard about Anchor, basically it was from, I think some radio host was talking about it, and he said you could do a podcast literally straight from your phone. And I thought to myself, that's an awful idea. It is a bad idea to do podcasting straight from your phone. And I will give you a reason why it's awful, why it's a bad idea to do podcasting straight from your phone. Basically, the audio to it. Your microphone that is embedded into your phone is definitely not the greatest, the greatest thing in the world. Basically, the setup that I have, which I'll talk about here in a second, is perfect for a podcast. You want something like that. However, with a phone in general, you definitely don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to do a podcast where you have like a lavalier microphone, because the slightest movement is awful. It really is. I actually owned a lavalier microphone once before. I still do to this very day. I don't use it at all, not even when I have to record anything, because like it'll record what's in the microphone, but it'll also record what's going on the external part of the microphone for the recorder as well. And it's so awful. Another thing you don't want to use when recording a podcast is definitely when you are using like a webcam and you have speakers. You definitely don't want to do that. You definitely don't want to use the speakers and microphone coming from your laptop as well. It's just god awful. Now, however, my setup here, which I did say I was going to talk about, is actually really perfect to do podcasting on. Basically, I have a Sudotech ST800 microphone. That's SUDOTACK. And yes, I did look at the spelling of the microphone. It's like literally in front of it. You can find this microphone off of Amazon. After tax, it's $56. I don't know why they hide the tax away from that, but if you get like 1 day shipping or whatever the case is, yeah, you're going to have to pay more for that, which I'm fine with having to wait. But basically it's clamped on from I guess a boom arm or a scissor arm, whatever it is, which that is clamped onto the desk that I have here. It's also held by a mount. Now, here's the thing. Some people say that the shock mount prevents any other extra noises coming into the microphone. I say that's actually a load of BS because I've hit this shock mount I don't know how many times, and for some reason it still generates a lot of noise. One thing that you will have to look into, kind of like what I'm doing right now when it comes to a podcast, have something to drink with you. Because your mouth is going to get extremely dry very quickly too when you talk a lot into a podcast. Now, is it rude to drink in a podcast? I don't think so, because eventually you're going to start slurring and your S's aren't going to come out as clearly. It really means a lot when you stay hydrated in a podcast. I came very close from saying dehydrated, but that's the opposite of where you need to be. Now, what exactly would you need for a podcast while recording? Basically, like I said before, you definitely need a microphone setup. I highly recommend getting a USB condenser microphone. You don't want to get an XLR condenser microphone, because after that you're going to have to spend so much money on getting phantom power, some kind of sound mixer, and a bunch of other cords just to power up your podcast. For myself, I generally lean on the USB condenser microphone, because all thing you gotta do is just plug in the microphone into the computer, let it try to sync in with the computer, and then go to the settings for it and just adjust it from the sound preferences, I think it is. I'm not too sure where I had located all this stuff, but anyway, I have a tutorial on that. It's off my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Uncle Jon Podcast. I'm sorry, not Uncle Jon Podcast. That's not even a link. youtube.com/Uncle Jon. Why did I say podcast? I don't know why. Oh boy. But yeah, I do have a podcast off YouTube as well. It's the same thing like this one. I just upload what I do right now over there, and that's easy and simple. I also forgot to mention that this podcast is being powered by Anchor.fm. You can actually find the application for Anchor not just on your computer, but you can find it off your iOS and Android device. Basically, the only thing you got to do is go to your App Store or Google Play Store, whatever the Google part is called. Type in Anchor. It's a little blue, little pink, purple. There we go. Trying to figure out the color. It's a bit of a bright, not sure if it's dark or not. To me, it's a bright purple logo that looks like it has kind of like the sound settings to it, which is located, if you're using Windows like I am, to the bottom of the taskbar to the right. It's near your internet and your cloud space storage for Windows, which I never use my cloud space at all. If it's activated, I probably need to turn it off. I don't like using it at all. But yeah, download it. Of course, you're going to have to sign up to listen to podcasts like this one here. It's completely free. There's no fees to it whatsoever. I feel like I have to belch, but it's not coming out. I probably will hear. I felt like it was coming out, but I guess that was a false alarm. Now, one good question about recording a podcast is not the setup, but it's mainly, do you need a headset to talk, to listen to the other person on the other line? it really depends. If they're there with you personally and you can see them physically, and they're sitting right next to you, you really don't need one. However, if you're doing one on Skype or on Discord or just on the computer in general, yeah, you're going to need one. The best way I would go about it is have either your left ear plugged up with the headset or the right one plugged up with the headset, and leave either your left or right ear like open just to hear yourself talk. But if you're using like something kind of like an XLR condenser microphone, yeah, you're going to have the headset completely on your head while you can hear yourself and the other person talk. But if you got something like what I have, just keep like the one ear part onto whichever ear you're going to listen to, and the other ear just listening out, just in case of like somebody comes in or, you know, says something to you or whatever the case is. Now here's a good thing to really get started about Anchor. When you sign up for Anchor, there's always going to be this partnership deal that you're going to go through, and it's an automatic thing as soon as you sign up. And signing up now is a little different than what it was when I actually did, because when I did it, they were wanting you to, you know, post up your picture and all this kind of stuff, and then they got into uploading an episode. However, now when you sign up for it, basically you have to post up an episode first and then get to the picture and then monetization and all that kind of other stuff. Now with myself, did I do that my first time? No, I didn't. I actually made the podcast and I waited for about a week or two and then did an episode, which is really bad because you can't get any kind of partner deals with other platforms to have your podcast on, because they need an episode quickly. So if you have a trailer, you can do one for as long as you want. It has to meet the minimum requirement to make like a trailer is 40 seconds, but you can make it as long as you want. I would say make it about a minute, and then after that post it, and then make an episode. You don't have to post the episode right away, but you can make the episode and then wait until next week to post it, or you can post it right after you do the trailer. It's all up to you. Now, there is a way to really separate trailers from episodes, and there's a way to separate your episodes within seasons. How I normally do it is I basically go about having the episodes per season by going all the way down to the bottom. Whenever you're getting ready to do your description of your episode, the title of your episode, go down to the bottom. It'll have like two boxes for you. For one's for season, one's for episode. Select for your season, which the lowest is 1. I don't know how high I can go for the seasons. I don't want to know how high I can go. I don't want to know how high I can go for episodes either. But just remember, you don't have to do a subscription to really like make episodes. You really don't need that. Thank God. Some places do. One place in general that I thought was really good for podcasting was a SoundCloud. However, you need a subscription for that. And I think that's kind of stupid. I think it's stupid that people need a subscription when they're podcasting. That's just me. Now, one important key factor is, like, some people would always ask, well, okay, I'm on, excuse me, it finally came out. I'm on Anchor. I have, 8 platforms for my podcast. However, I don't have Apple. Like, did they not get Apple? Well, here's the thing with Apple. Apple's a little bit of a confusing process. I had a storytelling podcast, basically, just for telling stories, obviously. However, when it came to the idea of doing story podcasts, I did not know that it got a platform on Apple Podcasts. Had no idea. So with my other podcasts that I had, Wrestling with the Podcast, which that's off on another channel, and this podcast here, before I deleted it, basically I had to take the URL RSS feed, that's what they call it in the advanced options, and I had to submit it through iTunes. Now the thing of it is that you got to go and, like, where it says music, change that to podcast. It could be up in the upper left hand corner within iTunes, or it'll be, somewhere where, like, on the bottom right hand corner. Just click on that, select podcasts, wait for it to reload again, and then click on submit a podcast. Then it's going to take you to a website. Log in from there, submit your RSS feed that you got from the URL, and then after that, click validate. Now here's the thing. It will come up as failed validate from time to time if you're submitting something. Now, don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong, and neither did the submission feed. However, it goes by unique names. So yeah, you're going to have to change the name of your podcast. You're going to have to basically, what's the term I'm looking for here? It's probably super easy, and I'm trying to look for something technical here. But anyway, you're going to have to change it to something original, something different. And then after that, it will submit it, immediately change it back to your name, and then it'll have it coming up as the name that you want it to have. However, in my case, it didn't really do that. It actually came up with the Uncle Jon Experience, but I had it changed to podcast, and then it changed to podcast. Within certain episodes, it still called it Experience. For myself, it was basically podcasts, just from the podcast link in general. But yeah, that was the hassle of putting it all on Apple. Is it worth having it on Apple? Yes, it is completely, because there's more listeners coming from Apple than there are from Spotify. Some people will say that's not true. I say that's a fact because my analytics from it proved me otherwise. The most I had from listeners was from web or from Anchor. Third place came Apple Podcast. Last place came with Spotify. So if anyone thinks I'm wrong, try it out for yourself. See how that turns out. To me, that's how it worked. But yeah, that's collectively how you would do a podcast like that. And yes, this came from a while of doing it, then having to delete it, and then having to redo it, and then delete it. And actually, a friend of mine's right. This would make the third time I had done this. That's odd. I thought he was wrong, but well, Dane, you know who you are if you're listening. So yeah, you were right. This is the third time I have actually done this. Is it actually fun to remove your podcast? Not at all. It's a headache to remove it. Sometimes you got to wait a while for it to completely remove itself. Now here is the thing. Say like you're subscribed to your own podcast, but you're only doing this to see if, I am so sorry I hit the the shock mount. You're only doing this to see if your episode will upload or not. It's okay to do that. I did it for myself, and I will continuously do that until I no longer do podcasts anymore, which I highly doubt that will ever happen again. Basically, when it comes to deleting a podcast, it doesn't go away from your library. You have to delete it yourself off of your iPhone or iPod. You don't necessarily have to delete it off of iTunes. You can keep it on iTunes if you want. But on your iPhone, say like you're wanting to restart everything, you're going to have to to delete it manually, and that's what I had to do. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the tuchus, and it's very tedious. However, I will save you the time and hassle. No, you do not have to call Apple to figure out how to delete it. Is there an email address to contact to delete it? Not that I know of, but the easiest way I went about it was through itunesconnect.apple.com. That's how I got rid of it. It's that easy and simple. You just basically click on my podcast, click on my podcast again, and then it's going to show you your whatever podcast you have that you had submitted. Click on one of them. Down to the very bottom, it'll say delete my podcast, delete it, and it'll probably take about maybe a day or two for it to completely delete. Actually, for myself, I deleted it probably within 15-20 minutes, which was actually really awesome. So now, anyway, let's really get to know your, like, I was going to say yourself, myself in general. Who am I? What am I about? All that good stuff. I think I said a little bit about who I was, but I didn't really go into depth about this. So basically, for myself, I've always wanted to do these kind of things with podcasts. Like I said, I've always wanted to talk to the general audience. I've always wanted to connect with people, and I've always wanted to have like a conversation with people. And this was way before I actually wanted to monetize any of my work. And now, since I monetize my work, it's a lot better. It really is. And believe me, the bigger your viewership is, the happier you will get in the long run, and the more money you'll make out of it too. When you're first starting, you're not going to have that big of an audience. Yes, you're going to have to share your podcast out in public. You're going to have to share with a lot of people. You're going to have to do a lot of things in order to really gain that viewership. Now, there was one thing I did forget about mentioning when it came to a podcast here, and I know that I'm backtracking every time. Believe me, you're going to go through that a lot in a podcast. Backtracking to the setup of a podcast, which I just now remembered by looking at what I'm recording off on. One of the most important parts about recording is the software. What exactly do you need to record? You need, like, say for an example, I use OBS. The latest software I have is OBS 24.0.1. I have a 64-bit for Windows. Use that. The setup is really easy. If you don't know how, there's tutorials to do that as well. Basically, I'm running this off of my microphone auxiliary setup. People that talk through are going to be on desktop audio. You can also do solo podcasts off on Audacity or Wave Sound. I can't remember the actually. You're gonna hear a click probably, but WavePad Sound Editor. What else is there? I think there's Streamlabs OBS, which I don't know. I have it, but I don't really use it that much at all. There's also Adobe Audition, which, yes, there's a subscription fee to use that with. I've tried using it before. I don't completely understand it, but hopefully sometime if I feel like doing a subscription fee to it, then yeah, basically I'll just that was me letting go of the mouse, by the way. But yeah, I'll do probably a little subscription feed or subscription watchamajigger and go based off on that. Time for another water break too. It's always nice to have water with you. I have like another bottle of water right near me too, just in case I guzzle this whole thing down. But luckily I haven't done that yet. it also helps to have sponsors as well too, to really keep up with the podcast, just in case you're not making what you're expecting out of money wise. But that's just, honestly, some people find that money hungry, but honestly, I find it a way to better success your or succeed yourself into success. Back to the topic at hand. Basically, for myself, what you hear is what you get out of the first try. I'm all over the wall. I wish I had everything just completely organized, but I'm not much of an organizer at all. I think my own folks can attest to this. I don't organize, period, because, like, for myself, which I'm going to describe in later podcast episodes too, I have a bit of an OCD to certain things. I think my my mom once told me, she said, although you have a bit of an OCD too, for some reason you don't have OCD to organizing and cleaning. I'm like, I don't know how to really go about that. I mean, for myself, certain things are easy to clean. I like cleaning up the kitchen because to me that's just my downtime to myself while I listen to podcasts. I just recently just started to get in the habit of cleaning up my room all over again, keeping it nice and tidy, which, to be fair, was one of the reasons why I couldn't do podcasting, was because I didn't maintain to that. That was the thing I think I said I didn't want to talk about, but it's all out there now. Yeah, I was lazy doing it too, very lazy, and yeah, it prevented me from doing all this stuff again. I had to basically prove my worth into doing that, into getting the podcast back. Excuse me. But people would think, well, at your age, you shouldn't. All this kind of stuff, you shouldn't have to be told, like, to do these kind of things over and over again. Well, I agree. However, I have a very bad memory. Very bad memory. I was tested for it, and it turns out that, yes, it was proven from a psychologist from a community college, actually. She wanted to know how well I could function properly. My memory is god awful. It really is. But like I said, I'll get into like more about me into other podcast episodes later on down the road. But, which, by the way, this is not going to be the first episode to be uploaded. Matter of fact, you're going to get 2 episodes. This one and one after this one. And then after that, each and every other week will be like 1 episode, maybe 2 per week. You never know. They're not going to be on the same day, though. But it'll be on different days. Just whenever editing comes through and podcasting's done, whatnot. One of the main questions that I usually get is like, when you're done with a podcast, like, do you just upload it to YouTube? Like, what do you do? My answer is, first I upload it to Anchor, and then I usually wait until probably like garage door's opening. I generally wait until maybe about a couple days or so, and then I upload the episode onto YouTube or onto Facebook. I'm not sure if I mentioned this here before. Like I said, I have a very bad memory a lot of the times, which some people would probably think, well, if you got a bad memory, why do you do podcasts? That's the main reason. I forget a lot of the time, and it's so easy to really talk about certain things, and then if I don't remember something, I go back and listen to it sometimes. I hate the sound of my own voice too, which I think everybody can relate to. I generally hate the sound of my own voice. But anyway, for myself, I do suffer from mental problems. I suffer from health problems as well. For myself, I go through a fatty liver. Basically, my liver's okay. It's just a little abnormal, a little larger than most livers out there in the world. Has a huge fatty tissue on it, and it's something I need to desperately get rid of. I also have a learning deficiency. For myself, I have MMI, which not a lot of people know about what MMI is. And I will cover that in the next episode as well. So some of you will get to know me in general. Will get to know basically what I'm all about when it comes to dealing with myself in general. Basically what my favorite hobbies are, what I like to get into, all that sort of stuff. That's things I'll get into later on down the road. If you were to ask me what was my favorite episode of making, or in the process of making, before I deleted the podcast, which I still have, by the way, it'll still be uploaded as a bonus sometime. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe it won't. Because the audio quality to it is so great. It's just like this one. I may just upload it probably in season 2, just to upload it, because some people would, some people would think that's a bit of a cheating way. To be honest with you, I don't find that as cheating. I find that as a way of saying, well, this is where I last left off onto, which would be really amazing too. If I uploaded it back to the exact episode timeline of where it was, not the day, but having it uploaded as episode 20 for season 2 would be phenomenal. It would be. It would be completely phenomenal. Now, I've also been debating about this too when it comes to making certain seasons. Like, should I start with 1 and end up at 19 as a full season? What should I do? To be fair with you, what was I going to do? I was going to do something. No, because usually with season 2, I ended off with 20, and then season 3, I would go from 21 to 30. But that would be kind of backwards in a way, you would think. So I think I probably want to go with 1 through 19 for season 1, then 20 to 29 for season 2, and so on and so forth. Maybe. I'm thinking about it too. Because it kind of adds. Because I want to do it to where the numbers match up. 1 through 10 or 1 through 19 would be season 1, because the 10s deal with 1s, and season 2 deals with 2s and such. That's what I'm wanting. It doesn't mean it'll necessarily happen, but it's what I'm probably going to look into. Probably by OCD too, because certain things right now I'm looking at my book. It's kind of stacked up like Tetris, and if I move it, it may make no. Oh, yeah, it made a little bit of a noise. I don't know if the microphone caught it. But, yeah, this part on top of this book here is... I gotta even that up here, too. There's a lot of things on my desk I need to organize again. The one thing that kind of takes over my desktop mostly is this drawing pad here that I have. I really need to get into... drawing more. However, the drawing pad that I have here is the XP pen, which literally does come with a stylus and a pen holder. It also comes with a drawing tablet with 8 buttons, 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom, bit of a divider in between. Has the arrows to show you exactly where the line is, and I've used it before, and I'm not that good with drawing blindly. I'm usually kind of guy that likes to look at what he's drawing most of the time anyway, which I do plan on saving quite a bit of money to get something like that, to get better at it. I also heard that there was a software, which I downloaded too, called Krita. I think that's what it's called. Let me take a look here real quick. Yeah, Krita. Krita. It's free. I mean, just like with OBS, it's free. And they do say, if you want to support them, you can always donate money to help further on their projects. Honestly, if I was making money constantly, then yeah, I would donate completely, totally, all that good stuff. I do have a lot of topics I like to get down to the bottom of, and really explore a lot of regions. There's one topic I like to talk about sometime, probably within this season too. It doesn't even deal with mental health at all. It just deals with technology in general. I think it's going to be a lot of fun talking about it. Another great thing about myself is that I love music. And I'm probably going to be talking about music sometime down the road. I mean, just now looking as I lean in further to my microphone here, I have, if this thing doesn't drop on me, I have a bit of All That Remains music. I have like one. Actually, all my other music that isn't all that remains is like on the bottom here. And if you can't tell, I am a All That Remains fan. I'm mainly into rarities. I basically have an All That Remains Hold On single, which for those of you that are All That Remains fans, and you're probably wondering, well, what does this disc or compact disc contain? It actually contains the extended version. And if you're wondering, well, how in the world did you come across that? It was on eBay. It was the only one I found too. I got it for my birthday. And if you're wondering, well, was it like cheap? Not really, and it wasn't too expensive either. It was $20 for the single? And believe me, it's definitely worth it. There was another one I got too. It was the advanced version for We Are Many, or for the album for We Are Many. I don't know if you can hear that. Yeah, my microphone's picking it up. This is the first time this has happened on the podcast. I just thought I'd let you all listen to that. Yeah, I live near a place where they have airplanes and helicopters fly by. They don't normally do this all the time though, but they do this from time to time whenever they get an upgrade for their machinery, or they just want to test something out, or they have to fly something out, which usually doesn't happen a lot. It happens sometimes during the summer, but not all the time. Sometimes so. But anyway, as I was saying, I own All That Remains work. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 discs here. Some other stuff I own digitally through iTunes. Yeah, that's basically kind of like my whole, well, not my whole collection. I have a collection of books. I basically have The Snowden Files, Unfiltered by Phil Robertson, Hitler's Last Days by Bill O'Reilly. Actually, The Snowden Files, I think, was authored by Luke Harding, Harding, Phil Robertson, Bill O'Reilly, Duck Commander Family by Willie and Corey with a K, Robertson. Psychology 101, except the 10 is X'd out and it just says 1 by Cy Robertson, S.I. Robertson. And psychology is S.I. dash Ecology. I actually read that whole book. It's not that bad. It really isn't. It's really in depth about his life. Unfiltered, I'm actually not even done with that at all. I'm close to it, but I'm really looking forward to finishing that. Yeah, basically at the end of the podcast, which this is going to be the end to it, I just look at certain things around my environment and just talk about it here real quick. I'm also going to talk about the differences between the iOS devices like the iPhones and Android devices, which one I like more and which one I don't, which has a pro, which has a con, which, believe you me, they both have pros and cons. I also have, I wouldn't say a collection, but I have 2 fidget spinners. And some people would say, like, why do you own a fidget spinner? To be fair, it kind of relaxes me. Excuse me. But yeah, it kind of relaxes me. I have a set of, actually, whoa, hiccup. 2 sets of poker chips. Looking around here for anything else that's like not out of the ordinary. Earpods that I have on my desk, which I do need to reorganize again. Oh, by the way, if I can reach it without hitting my microphone, I don't care if I hit my monitor. My monitor is not really my big issue, but I have here 2 unopened cards. One of them is a Topps card that has Hulk Hogan on it from the, I would say, 80s. Still unopened to me. This was given to me almost a decade ago from an old friend of mine, Ian. Ian, if you were listening to the podcast, thank you for this wonderful gift. I mean, you just randomly gave it to me. You thought I would like it, and I took it home with me. I was thinking about opening it too, but I thought, maybe it's going to be worth something down the road. So I kept it completely in its wrap. The other one is a Detective Pikachu card. It's holographic. On the back of it, it has a promo card redemption code for the online Pokemon game. And yes, I do like Pokemon. That's another thing too. I do like Pokemon, which, by the way, I will go ahead and say before we end this episode here, leading into episode 2, which I'll probably record that tomorrow, and upload this one. Trying to think here, because I'm starting to think I made a mistake by saying that you get 2 episodes in one day. I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. It all depends. But anyway, I have a guest that will be coming on here, joining me. We're going to be talking a lot about Pokemon. But yeah, I am a Pokemon fan. I definitely love the old school games. This here came from the movie Detective Pikachu, which, by the way, I did see. I'm not going to tell you the ending. I'm not going to tell you anything about the movie. I'll just say if you want to see it, you're going to have to see it for yourself. I think it's available on Vudu for $7.99. I'm not sure if that's standard or HD. Sounds like a standard thing, though. But I have standard and HD on there. I usually just watch off standard because, like, for some reason my computer just says, we can't detect your HDMI cord, so by law, you're going to have to watch it on standard. I'm like, oh, okay. So, that's it. Other than that, there's really not a lot to talk about here. I just basically do a lot of unboxings whenever I get a product. Here soon, I'm going to be talking on YouTube about the Black Web Bluetooth earphones, which honestly, I use these a lot more now than I do with my own earpods. But like from time to time, and I will admit this, I bought these for traveling. They were a little over $20. However, I constantly use them because the sound quality is so good. I completely love them. However, I do mean to use my iPods more and more. And I do say mean, not need, but I do mean to use them a lot. I do need to use them whenever I get like an incoming call or something, because like apparently people can't hear the microphone end to the black web Bluetooth earphones, yet they can hear just fine through the earpods, which I can't blame them. The earpod ones are a lot better. But yeah, gonna have some guests coming in. Not at the house per se, but basically off of Skype. And if they can't do Skype, we'll do it off of Discord. Hopefully, it's gonna be really great, really well. And with all that said, that is all the time that I have for you today for this podcast here. I may do another one later on today, just so that tomorrow everything gets uploaded. You'll be happy, I'll be happy, and the world will be happy. So with that said, I do thank you all so much for joining me at this time. I know I talked everyone's ear off, and believe me, I'm going to talk your all's ear off again, but this time it's going to be on a certain topic. Every episode that I do will be on a certain topic, unless I'm with a guest and we just talk about whatever. Or unless that guest in particular has a certain genre about them that I want to get into. But other than that, that's basically it. So if you want to, follow me, all my stuff is in the details. For iOS and Google, just follow that kind of stuff. Details on the information about myself will be also on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just click on those links, and hopefully you'll subscribe, follow, whatever the case may be. Got a lot going on down the road with podcasts. So with that said, I will see you all next time. Until then, take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye for now.